Hey, it's Larry. Welcome to Stewarding the Wealth Transfer. Well, I really think the wealth transfer is closer than ever, and it is crazy that it hasn't happened yet, but I really think this is an important time of preparation, ongoing preparation, and I've really been thinking about it, praying about it, and these are questions that you have to answer for yourself because you are going to be the one that, either receives the reward or will receive the regret of how you responded to what God, led you to do. The secrets to a great devotional life, I've learned, is what, when, and where. If you don't know right now what you're going to do, where you're going to do it, and when you're going to do it, if you don't know those questions, I almost guarantee you don't have a very good devotional life. You don't have what you could have. In Exodus 33:11, God described the kind of relationship that he had with Moses. And Moses was a friend of God, and God spoke to him face to face. And I think that really set a great precedent for the kind of relationship that we can have. If you don't believe that even before the Holy Spirit was given, even before the book of Acts, that God wanted to have face-to-face relationship with his people. He wanted to become people to be his friend. It's not that we don't honor him, that we don't fear him, that we don't respect him, but he wants to speak to you, he wants to talk to you, and he wants to influence you. And he wants to receive the praise and the communion that you can have. And so set yourself up, decide, God, show me when, where, what, and how I'm going to do it. And then bring a journal, bring a good pen. I almost always have. I'll even put in, you guys always ask me about these cross gel pens. They're about $40, but they're such a pleasure to write with. And on these journals, I really like I call them polka dot. They're dot journals instead of line journals, and that's what I like. But I think a journal is a really important gift to do along with your devotions. What I think you do is you take your journal, your pen, your Bible, you spend time with God. I would encourage you, if you don't have any consistent devotional time, I would encourage you to do 15 minutes and be moving towards 20 and then moving towards a half hour, but you need to enjoy it, but sometimes you just need to push through it. And, you can read a couple of those chapters, a couple of those minutes. You can read a few chapters. If you're a slow reader, maybe you're just going to do 3 chapters a day. And I don't feel bad if I don't read the Bible every day of the week, but it really is my goal to do it. And normally I do. But even if you set your goal for 5 days a week, I'm going to get up, I'm going to be sitting in this chair doing this. And then, I'm going to pray for a while. But don't be religious about getting to know the person who wrote the Bible, the words of the Bible. Get to know the person who wrote the Bible, not just the words. And so, lean into getting to know God. And in that time, you're going to develop a strategy, because second question is, how is your family? What I've learned is that you have to continually reevaluate everything all the time. And a big influx of money is going to allow you more options, but it could make things worse, because if you get overly focused on the money, your family life could deteriorate, when I think probably the will of God is for you to focus more on your family. And so how is your marriage, if you're married yet? If you're not married, are you hanging around the right people? Are you becoming the person that God would bless, a similar high caliber Christian person with? My dad was, if you knew him, he's kind of a funny guy. He was a railroad engineer. He was kind of a simple man. But he had one legendary bit of dating advice. And I don't know, he never talked about dating, and I didn't want to hear what he said about dating. Somewhat like my own son, didn't really want to hear what I had to say to him. But I was the one that did introduce my son to his wife, and so that's something that is pretty funny. But my dad would say, Larry, if you want to catch a marlin, you got to go where the marlin are. And yet I see so many people who go to a bar, meet a girl who used to be raised in a Christian home. They go through this, relationship, whatever it is, get things out of line, don't follow God's will. They may end up getting married, they may not. it ends up being a regret, and they break up and they have a lot of regret. And then in their sorrow, they go right back, maybe to the same bar, to a different bar, and they meet somebody again. I don't think that's where the Marlins hang out. I'm not saying you can't, that's impossible. I'm just saying if that's your habit, that's like, every once in a while you can catch a fish where it doesn't belong. But if you want to catch a marlin, follow my dad's great advice, go where the marlins are. So how is your relationship with your kids? How is your relationship with your parents? Are you prioritizing your elder parents? When somebody's in their 50s, and I'm in my 60s, my wife's still in her 50s, we are dealing still with parents. We have 2 of 4 left, and we need to go out of our way to prioritize them and honor them. And now we're becoming grandparents. And so that's an interesting challenge. And that's a little bit more complicated. It's so much more fun than I expected, but there's complicated things. And I want to say one thing about the Trump family. That is an amazing family. And what's weird is a lot of people say a lot of bad things about Trump that don't know him, but the people that know him love him, and the people that work for him love him, and even his family. He's got kids that, Barron is this mystery man that's coming of age. Don is probably close to my age, I would say, maybe a little younger. And then Eric, I know, is younger. And I'm impressed by Eric. Don is not really Don Jr. is not really my cup of tea. But I'm going to tell you that there's a guy in my town in Longview that has a small lodge in Alaska. And he couldn't tell anybody this until after it happened, but he had a small group that rented his whole lodge, which I think is about 4 rooms. And it's at a pretty remote, not a fancy place in Alaska. I'm telling you, we saw pictures afterwards. I know this guy. I don't know him well. My closest friends know him very well. And Don Jr. and his boys went up fishing with him at his little lodge for a week. And this guy lives in my town, and he said the quality of family commitment that Don Jr. had towards his kids was so inspiring, and he made those kids work, and they didn't mind working, and they cleaned their own fish, and they were respectful, and they enjoyed and were able to engage with other adults. And so he's like his dad. He's been married a few times, so he's not a perfect guy. But I will say that the Trump family does an amazing job at their family. And, it's interesting because so many church people act like they prioritize God, and yet their families are in varying levels of disarray. And then we have somebody who doesn't go to church, who only late in his life comes to God, and he's really got an amazing family. And I will tell you that one of the regrets I have as I came into financial prominence is I was willing, and I did sacrifice to a degree, the relationships with my kids. And probably one of the best things that happened is me having a big financial reversal so that my kids weren't raised with the silver spoon in their mouth. They tasted it, then they lost it, and then after they moved out, it came back. And so they see it. But they knew what it was like to have plenty, and they knew what it was like to have just enough. And I think they're probably better off for that. But how well are you balancing your family? What about your friends? I've said this before, but so many people have such poor discretion in their friends. And I sense that especially Western Christians prioritize and are loyal to their friends that just don't serve them well at all. And there's continually reminders in Proverbs that who you associate with makes such a big difference in your degree of success and, I think avoiding regret in life. And so all the more so when you have all kinds of money. We've all seen snooty people. They love to hang out together. The thing is, people with a lot of resources, it's hard to hold on to those resources. And as you come into great resources, you need to have godly people who will help you know how to live. What's weird is that people look around, they don't really know when your income goes up 4 or 5 or 10 times, it's hard to know how to respond to that. How do you do that? It's one of the biggest commitments that I have to you. If you're willing to come along for the ride and come on some of the activities, I think that you need to upgrade your friends. Now, it's one thing whether you just kick your friends out, and I've kind of been through that, down that road a little bit, and it's pretty uncomfortable for them, and it's not so much fun for you, but you just don't need to go out of your way to hang out with people, especially that are Christian in name only or in their own mind, but you know they don't really have a God-fearing life. Why do you hang out with them? Why do you hang, if you're not a good influence on them, and they're not, if they're not a good influence on you, you need to question it. Now, if they have no fear of God and you're not close, but you can influence them, those are people we need to go after. I'm talking about the people who have tremendous influence on you, yet they are not having any hunger for God. You really need to rethink those friendships. And I think Proverbs is full of warning. There's so many things that are going to be transitioning. You're going to be transitioning spiritually. This outpouring of God, I assure you, I know it's coming. I wrote about it. Kim Clement prophesied about it continually. Other people, men of God, a lot of current prophets are talking about the outpouring that's coming. But this is a time of transition in your life spiritually. It's going to be a transition socially, and it's going to be a transition financially. And those are all hard things. Usually you go from having a good job to starting a business to having a successful business. And then even most business owners don't transition to where they become great investors. And what I'm saying by that is when your investments bring in more money than what you need to do. And what I believe is going to happen to people during the wealth transfer, and this is going to be an unprecedented thing where tons of people, believers and not, are going to participate in the wealth transfer. I think God wants the wealth of the wicked in the hands of the righteous, and so I think many of those are going to be saved. I think it's a huge advantage to have faith and being, running after it. But what's going to happen is you're going to go from having a job or wherever you're at in life, and then you're going to come into this transfer of wealth, and you're going to have to steward it wisely, and you're going to have all these decisions. When do I quit my job? What do I do? What if you're really young and you really hit the wealth transfer really well? But then you're going to have a pile of money, and you need to learn how to turn it into a consistent cash flow. And that's one of the things I have a lot of opinions about. And as I look at my own life, that's really what I've done better. I think I'm a good businessman, but I really adapted well into living off the money that my businesses make. And that's a hard skill that a lot of people don't do. And so that's something I want to impress on you. And I don't want to make a living doing it. I'm going to cover my cost when I do it. But I want to put you around other people who are doing the same thing, because when you're both running down a road together with similar resources, it's really great to have a tribe, that you can run with, a godly tribe. And so you need to think about your strategy of transition. One of the things you need to think about, and I wrote about it in both books, both Stewarding the Wealth Transfer and the Parable of the Dinar, as well as the more recent one I wrote somewhat about, the Rise of Kingdom Billionaires. What's going to be your lifestyle cap? What number are you going to live off of? And why I say that, the best business advice, I've given it countless times. I've had so many people who come into business. These are people who come into business, they start making a lot more. And I say, you need to decide what you're going to live off of, and don't let that be a random decision every month, because especially realtors, when they come in during the good times, and now's not the good times if you're a realtor, I think you realize what I'm talking about, but don't worry, the good times will return. You just need to be, wise. But what you want to do is you want to live off, everybody likes to live off a nice amount of money. I'm not saying be a pauper, but choose a wise amount of money. And the second thing is, the next question is what your lifestyle is what your giving choice is. And I really want to challenge you. I think during this time of the wealth transfer, as God really blesses you, I want to encourage you to consider the challenge, at least pray about it, the challenge that God has given my wife and I, where we want to give more than what we live off of. And so that's something that I hope you consider. If you can't even fathom that, then maybe start with half of it. So what that means is at the beginning of each month, we decide how much, in fact, we just decided at the beginning of the year what we're going to live off of, and we move that amount into our personal account. And then we have a giving account, and as long as we have the IRS, but whether it's the IRS or not, whether we have taxes, we have a separate account, and it's our giving. We do the same credit union for those two things, and then all our business we do at a different credit union. But our giving all goes out of our giving account. We put the same amount in there at the beginning of every month that we decided at the beginning of the year, and we want that to be a bigger amount than what we live off of. And during the wealth transfer, we want to begin to multiply that. But you're going to find as you start giving a lot that you're going to have a hard time designing your giving list. But your lifestyle cap, you're going to have to figure out what that is. And if you have a pile of money without a whole bunch of money coming in, then I would encourage you to think about 1%. 1% of, well, it would be 1/12 of 1% of, and maybe you're comfortable if your money is really coming in, maybe you choose to do 2% of what your total worth is. That's per year. So if you were worth $10 million, 2% would be $200,000 a year. And I don't know if you need that much, honestly, but I mean, that's not an egregious amount to live off of, but that's a lot. It's less, it's more than what we live off of. And then you give whatever you give in the other account. Another question, I'm calling this question 7, is are you going to take on more debt? I think that what's going on is, as I've studied Kim Clement, I realize how much God hates debt, and he's going to deal with debt in our country. And most people don't realize that. God is going to deal with our IRS and even property taxes. A lot of the smartest people in the room, the most intelligent financial people, the financial advisors on YouTube and the news, they can't fathom a non-debt-based financial system. So they can't imagine the Federal Reserve not being an entity, but I really can. And our Constitution only allows silver and gold, and that's the only money that our Constitution acknowledges. Now, I'm not going to say that it has to be the physical gold and silver. I think a paper equivalent, a silver certificate like I used to have when I was a kid, those are one way, but I think we're headed towards real silver and gold, God's money. And if you can't think about that, you can't fathom that, it's hard for people. But what I'm saying, the smartest people in the room can't fathom that we're moving away from the Federal Reserve System, that Trump is going to help us deal with it. But that's one of the things that I've just believed from the beginning as I've studied what Kim Clement said, and it's more and more looking like it could become a possibility. Number 8, your cash flow investment strategy. The thing that you've got to do as you come into all this money during the wealth transfer, you need to, my encouragement to you is you need to figure out how to go from a lump sum of cash. Maybe you make it in crypto, maybe you make it in dinar, maybe you make it in precious metals. You might be following these different things. I'm really looking forward to the Big E. In fact, we're supposed to be hearing about it, and next month, we're really going to know what the Big E is, I think, by the end of March. I remember that Kim Clement prophesied you'll hear about it in February. The Big E, I think, will be pretty defined in March, and you need to invest in it by May, is what he said. So I'm thinking about how am I going to have, and I don't think that's money I'm saving now. I think there's going to be proceeds. The Big E is not defined. The first 4 are defined. I think the first 4 will have gone off, and we can move proceeds from the first 4 into the Big E. What is your cash flow investment strategy? Now, if you have no idea, that's totally fine, but you need to begin getting an idea, and you need to be, I'm going to say this. I think you'd be really stupid if you didn't begin to learn from other people who've done really well. There's so few people who thrive without mentors and people of excellence, especially if they're godly people of excellence that aren't trying to take advantage of you, whether it costs money or not. You're worth investing in if you have resources. So, I'm going to do a lot of stuff for free. I'm guaranteeing you that the best things are going to happen when we come together. And so what I feel like what I need to do, you don't have to come if you don't want to, but I need to provide somehow like Costco priced events where you're going to experience top level things. It's not going to be a horrendous amount of money, or it may be a lot of money, but it's a really good deal for something that's really excellent. So I want to copy a lot what I experienced as a builder, home builder in the Builder 20 group, when we were mentored by some of the best and most elite level people in the building industry, as 15 or 20 companies would come together for a 3-day trip twice a year. And we just had a fantastic time. We developed great relationships. I was always the smallest guy in the room, but I grew tremendously during that time. And I really want you to begin to think about who are your friends, who's influencing you. I almost guarantee you, and I'm not speaking critically, but your pastor probably isn't a multi-millionaire. He probably doesn't know, or is probably not comfortable around the kind of person that you're going to become. And you need to become comfortable with it. And you need to maybe have confidence, and you might need to develop humility at the same time. And so you need to have an investment strategy. And I really like the way the parable of the dinar, the first 55, 58 pages of the parable of the dinar, tells a story of a young man coming into significant monies, and then he develops a cash flow strategy over the coming months. I think that's going to happen time and time again. And I think I'm an expert. I know I'm an expert at real estate. I don't know everything there is to know about real estate, but I've got consistent success at building new, at renovating. I didn't do as good at renovating as a lot of people have done, but my margins were better. And so anyway, I didn't do like my brother has done, over 50 homes a year, a number of years in a row. So he's made a lot more money flipping homes than I have. But if you talk to both of us at the same time, he'd say, I wish I would have flipped those homes the way I did, but I wish I would have kept the best ones and shoved my money into a concentration that's easy to manage, so the third-party manager could manage it for me. And that's honestly what my future majority. I want half my wealth transfer resources within 3 years to be in cash flow real estate. And so that's, part of my goal. The ninth thing is, what about your influence and your ministry? I think God is going to begin to reveal it to you. And if you don't know yet, it's okay, but you better be asking the question, what do you want to do? What do you want to get good at? What is God calling you to do? And I'm telling you that when the passion and the Spirit of God comes down on you because you're called to do something, you're called to do that thing, and you begin to rise up to do it, you're going to feel a little bit like Jehu at times, and other people are going to be very uncomfortable with the passion and even the expertise as you rise up and you begin to chase the destiny that God has laid it for you. You can be called to do things that are way outside of your normal area of expertise. And I've had it happen a number of times. I remember it happened, first of all, when kind of a weird thing. I was a college group leader, and our college group ended up rallying to go against a number of really grotesque books. This is back in the early 90s, and there was a lot of necromancy and really bizarre, gothic really satanic books that were in our library that we pushed that glorified the dead, and it was spiritual. It wasn't just science. It was a morbid, grotesque thing, and so it didn't belong in a middle school library. So against all odds, we got in the paper and everything, but a group of us rose up and we made a passionate argument, and against all odds, we won. And the same thing happened during COVID-19. One of the things I did that made people so uncomfortable, I really split the Christian community, although most people thought I was right. But as I saw our blue state, Washington, go so engaged in COVID-19, I was like, I want to see our country celebrated. I think these guys are going to take out July 4th, and pretty sure they did. They in March they decided we're not going to have any more public gatherings, and we still hadn't seen a lot of people sick. And so anyway, I rose up and extended a contract to Lee Greenwood, and he accepted, and then it became this big thing where nobody even knew about Longview, but we were accepting Lee Greenwood to come into our town, and then I almost got arrested, and it was this big thing. But I have no regrets. I spent a fair bit of money, and no, Lee Greenwood wasn't able to come, but we still had thousands of people come, and we made a statement, and a lot of people were proud. We had a revival, actually, and a lot of people got saved, and some people even got healed. I mean, we had an impactful weekend where I feel like God led us, but it created a lot of weird. You would think that when you do the right thing, it always goes really well and everybody will love and support you. That's just not true. When I did the right thing, it created a lot of division because a lot of people are uncomfortable when you do the right thing. They believe this lie that, like, if you do what Jesus would do, there'd never be controversy. Well, look at And if you do what Jesus would do, you'd never call anybody out. You'd never make other people feel uncomfortable. Well, look at John the Baptist. He kept calling essentially the king of his region out for marrying somebody he shouldn't have married, and he ended up getting his head cut off because he kept prophetically rising up and speaking out against the actions of the king. And he was a godly man on fire, and he paid a price, but I don't think he didn't chicken out. And I believe that God could call you to make a difference in education, in business, in media. And you may have people in your church, even your pastor, that might be going, why are you so, turning over the money changer tables? Why are you rebuking and calling, leaders whitewashed sepulchers and a brood of vipers? Those are things that Jesus did that people weren't comfortable with. And don't doubt that I'm not saying try to be divisive, but you will be led to do things that will make people uncomfortable when you really go after it. And I think in this time, it's what's happening. I saw a bumper sticker as I was coming to my car after church today. It said, "Go woke and go broke." And I think that's a very true statement. I wouldn't have understood that 3 years ago, but now I know. And I think it's true. But there's still a lot of people that maybe they might think it, but they don't want you to really talk about it. And so I don't have that bumper sticker, but I don't try to walk the fence. I take a biblical, patriotic view, and I'm not ashamed of it. And if it's going to cost me something, I'm willing to pay a price in that. And I hope that you would have the same perspective. And so lastly, what money questions do I have, and what do I think are probably different than what other people think? Well, let's talk about, I'm not going to, I like Brandon, And a lot of people reacted in the video I did where I hypothesized what Brandon said was right. What if, it was only 1/20th of the amount? And I just don't believe it's going to be. So does it really matter what I believe? No, it really doesn't matter what I believe, but I'm still going to say it. I would be shocked if the dinar comes back at less than $1. I remember when an Iraqi leader said, kind of in a braggadocious, but I thought he was serious. He goes, there's going to be a day when the dinar, the Iraqi dinar, will be greater than the dollar. And I thought he said it with confidence. I believed it. That was on the front edge of me becoming aware of the dinar, and so I was paying attention. I remember it clearly. And the dinar may not come back at the 352 or whatever. What if it came back at $2? I don't think it's coming back at 20 cents. What I think, the reason I don't have a really strong opinion is because I've never been shown. But I did have a dream that I knew the Iraqi dinar was extremely valuable. I've had dreams about them being revalued in a bank, but I've also had dreams about me preserving them, and it was kind of a weird dream, but I just knew they were really valuable, and I just don't think 20 cents for a dinar is really valuable. I think $2. There's a lady who shared in the comments, and I thought she was very legit, and she said, I saw the Iraqi dinar 3 years ago come back at $1.85. And I thought, you know what? This lady's dream sounds really sincere. I've always thought I'm going to take it quick and get moved on. And I even watched Brother Keith talk about that. So I don't think the dinar is going to come back at 20 or 25 cents. I don't have a whole bunch of people to back me up, and there's not even a lot of people giving numbers. That's just my opinion. Now, on the silver thing, I'm not picking on Brandon, but I guess I'm picking on Brandon. He also said in a silver dream about 6 weeks ago that he saw gold go up to 10,000, but he only saw silver go up to 650, I think he said, 675. And I just have to say, and he was kind of letting us know, hey, the church is going to be disappointed. Well, there's other people. I think her name is Catherine Dennis or whatever. I don't really prefer her channel, but she thinks that silver will be the biggest return, more than XRP. I don't believe that. It all depends on when you get in, too. I mean, if you buy XRP when it's $7 and it goes to 7,000, you get 1,000 X return. But if you bought it when it was 34 cents, you would get 21,000 X return. And so it depends when you buy things. But I think silver, my friend, he has got the channel Barney in the River. I had him on my show, and he saw silver going higher than gold momentarily, and so did a number of other prophetic voices, including Julie Green. And I think I could see how that could happen. I don't think it's going to stay there, but I think it will go there. And silver has a historic, the reason I believe it's going to go so high is because I don't think we're going to use fiat currency in another 2 years. I think you're going to see, even in 2025, we're going to see the discontinuation of fiat currency. I think America is going to deal with its debt. We're going to use our oil and the big E to raise our country's cash flow. I think we're moving away from traditional taxes. We're moving away from traditional money. And I think silver is going to absolutely skyrocket. So I just don't believe it's only going to be $600 or $700. I think we will see it at $600 or $700. I'll be excited, but that's only the beginning of my real excitement, because I think it will go way past 1,000, at least for a while. And so, one last thing I'm just going to talk about. What's so crazy is, I'm on record for talking about there's going to be a crash, and you might go, well, Larry, it doesn't seem like there's going to be a crash. In fact, I've seen TC, who I don't follow so much, but, you probably know TC in the wealth transfer. He used to be Twisted Christian. He's like, hey, people have said he's calling everybody a false prophet, and he's saying all these people, they must be wrong because we're not going to have a crash. It would have happened by now. That's what he said. And you know what? I can understand why people would think that. So I'm not criticizing somebody for having that opinion. It's not my opinion. I consistently, but I've had two crazy dreams, visions of the stock market crash and the whole equity market, bond market crashing. And so I believe it's going to happen. If I didn't have those events, I probably would be optimistic. But I can't get past that people of faith are going to be rewarded in this time. And so I'll tell you a real tension. I took proceeds from when I have SHIB and Lunk, and I did really well on it because they went up about 3x, and I actually preserved some of my winnings. So really, at like the perfect time, I sold a quarter of each of my Lunk and SHIB, and I had significant money there, and I had locked in a really low XRP, and I've had people call me consistently or talk to me, do you still think XRP is going to go below $1? And I said that it would, and I've been wrestling with that, and I've like in my own mind I'm like, could it really get down to $1? And I've just decided, there's flash crashes, and if you don't have the money set aside and the lower unit set, I don't know that you're going to be able to take advantage of it. I don't know that every exchange is going to have the same downward prices at the same time, but I do believe that there's all kinds of prophetic words about extremely low crypto. And so I could buy a lot of XRP at the $2.50. Now it's $2.75 today, I think. But I'm not doing it. I'm going to take with that money that I've got set aside, I'm going to wait until the dip happens, and then I'll jump in. So I guess I'm taking the risk that it's going to drop well below $1, and then I'll jump in then, or I may have to pay over $5. It wouldn't surprise me a bit. If it goes up over $5, I'm just jumping in as much more as I'm going to put in. And but it's the tension of, do you try to buy it at 50 cents or do you just buy it at $2.75? In my prayer time, in my thinking, in my processing all this, so I'm just saying that there's financial things that we can't know, but we can be people of faith, and we can either be motivated by fear or we can be motivated by faith. And I want to be a person that's motivated by faith. So I am praying for you that you will make good decisions on your devotions, that you'll prioritize your family the right way, that with your marriage, with your kids, with your grandkids, with your parents, with your friends. I think it's such an important thing. Make good choices with your friends. Ask God, pray, write in your journal about His strategy for your time of transition. Think about your lifestyle cap and what percentage. I mean, I'm not saying you can't change how much you make, but I'm saying once you get used to spending all the money that you're going to have, you're going to regret it later, because this is only going to happen for a while. It's not like for the rest of your life you're going to have ridiculous money come in. And if you make all your life about money, it's really nice to have options, but just don't spend too much. You're going to regret it. So, maybe it's twice as much as you live off of now. I don't know. Maybe it's 50% more. Maybe it's 20% more. But be wise with your lifestyle cap. And then raise your giving minimum. And I would encourage you to prayerfully consider giving more than what you live off of. Debt. Are you going to take on more debt? My overall thing is I don't want to take on more debt during the wealth transfer. I don't think I'm supposed to. And so, that's what I'm doing. I'm not going to get new commercial loans is what I'm saying. If I have lines of credit that are tied up different ways, I'm not saying I won't do that, just to be candid, but I'm not going to buy houses and put down 20%. I just don't plan on doing that. I might do it once. but I'm not going to just do that repeatedly with, if I have millions of dollars come in, I'm not going to borrow tens of millions during this time. That's not in the short term. That's not my goal. What is your cash flow? Are you going to be comfortable with real estate? Are you going to try to do it with crypto? Are you going to go back to the stock market? What about your influence in ministry and your passion? Those are things that I think God is going to stir you and call you to. So, hey, it's been fun talking today. I have some good ideas for the next series. I think I'm going to do a series coming up. And so I just pray that you have a great week, and it's going to be exciting. I think Trump probably Monday, tomorrow, is going to finally have Kash Patel in and the FBI, and I think that's going to lead to some explosive things. I think 2020 is going to come into focus this week, beginning to. I also think the Big E is going to begin to come into focus. And so, exciting times we live in. Hey, you guys have a great day. Bye.